At the heart of every lightsaber lies a Kyber crystal, a rare, Force-attuned gemstone that serves as the weapon's power source and soul. Kyber crystals are organic minerals found across the galaxy, most famously mined on the ice world of Illume, though they naturally occur on countless worlds where the Force is strong. What makes Kyber crystals extraordinary is their ability to resonate with the Force itself. When a Force-sensitive individual constructs their lightsaber during their Jedi trials, they undergo a spiritual journey to find their crystal, which calls to them through the Force. The crystal itself is colorless in its natural state, pure and untouched. But when a Jedi bonds with it, the Kyber crystal takes on a distinctive hue that reflects the wielder's connection to the Force. Blue and green crystals are most common among Jedi, representing different aspects of their path. However, the Sith discovered a dark technique to corrupt Kyber crystals through exposure to dark side energy and immense suffering. This corruption transforms the crystal's color to red, a vivid crimson that burns with the rage and pain channeled into it. The crystal structure itself contains lattice formations at the molecular level that allow it to convert raw force energy into coherent plasma. When ignited, the Kyber crystal begins oscillating at a specific frequency that stabilizes the plasma blade. Without a Kyber crystal, a lightsaber cannot function. It is the irreplaceable component that defines what makes a lightsaber more than just a piece of technology. It makes it a spiritual extension of a Force user's will and connection to the Force itself. Directly connected to the Kyber crystal is the focusing lens, a precisely engineered optical component that shapes and concentrates the raw plasma energy released by the crystal into a coherent blade form. The focusing lens is typically made from specialized synthetic materials, or rare crystals, capable of withstanding extreme temperatures and energy concentrations, often Adagan crystals or similar Force-attuned gemstones that can handle the massive energy throughput. The lens functions by bending the plasma energy that exits the Kyber crystal, compressing it into a tight column, rather than allowing it to disperse in all directions. This is where the signature blade appearance of a lightsaber comes from. Without the focusing lens, the plasma would simply burst outward in a chaotic explosion, rather than forming the contained energy blade that lightsabers are known for. The quality and precision of the focusing lens directly determines the blade's appearance and performance. A well-crafted lens produces a clean, uniform blade with minimal wavering or distortion. A poorly crafted or damaged lens results in an unstable blade that flickers, crackles, or refuses to form properly. Master lightsaber craftspeople spend years perfecting their lens cutting techniques to achieve perfect optical alignment. Even slight imperfections in the lens can cause the entire weapon to malfunction. The lens must also be positioned at an exact distance from the Kyber crystal. Too close and the plasma becomes over-concentrated and unstable. Too far and the beam disperses before forming a proper blade. This precise engineering is why lightsabers constructed by experienced Jedi Masters produce superior blades compared to hastily assembled weapons. The focusing lens represents the bridge between the Force energy provided by the crystal and the physical manifestation of the blade that wielders see and feel. While the Kyber crystal provides the Force energy that fuels a lightsaber, the power cell is the mechanical component that regulates and sustains that energy flow during activation. The power cell is a compact energy storage device, typically no larger than a finger, that sits within the lightsaber's handle and connects directly to the activation matrix. Most standard power cells are designed to hold enough charge to sustain continuous blade operation for several hours of combat, though this varies depending on the cell's quality, size, and the lightsaber's overall energy efficiency. Power cells come in different grades and capacities. Standard military-grade cells provide reliable but modest performance, while premium cells crafted from rare materials can sustain higher power outputs and maintain charge longer. Jedi often preferred premium cells, while Sith sometimes used specially modified cells that allowed for higher energy draws, sacrificing longevity for increased blade intensity and striking power. The power cell contains microcapacitors and energy regulators that smooth out the raw force energy channeled through the Kyber crystal, preventing dangerous power surges that could damage the lightsaber's internal components or even explode in the wielder's hand. Without proper power regulation, a lightsaber would be as dangerous to its user as to any enemy. The power cell degrades over time with use, and a weakened cell will produce a dimmer blade and may fail to ignite entirely if depleted. This is why experienced lightsaber users carry backup power cells and maintain their weapons regularly. A well-maintained power cell can last years, but damaged or overused cells must be replaced. The power cell represents the practical engineering solution to sustaining the mystical force energy that the Kyber crystal provides, grounding the spiritual weapon in technological reality. The emitter matrix is the component where all the previous elements converge, where the Kyber crystal's force energy, shaped by the focusing lens and regulated by the power cell, finally emerges from the lightsaber as a visible plasma blade. The emitter matrix is a complex arrangement of conductive pathways, electromagnetic coils, and precisely aligned channeling apertures that work together to project the plasma outward in a controlled cylindrical column. The matrix sits at the very tip of the lightsaber's handle, typically hidden behind the emitter shroud or blade guard, and contains multiple overlapping magnetic field generators that create the containment envelope for the plasma. Without these magnetic fields, the plasma would instantly dissipate into the surrounding air. The emitter matrix essentially creates an invisible bottle that holds the superheated plasma in its blade shape. The quality of the emitter matrix directly affects blade stability and appearance. A master-crafted matrix produces a blade with minimal flickering and a clean, defined edge. A poorly constructed matrix results in a blade that wavers, crackles excessively, or produces visible distortions in the plasma column. Some emitter matrices are designed specifically for different blade colors or fighting styles. Aggressive matrices produce shorter, wider blades optimized for power strikes, while precision matrices create longer, thinner blades suited for technical swordplay. The emitter matrix also contains the focal point where the blade ignites into visibility, and this is where much of a lightsaber's personality emerges. Two lightsabers with identical components can produce subtly different blade characteristics if their emitter matrices were crafted by different artisans using slightly different techniques. The emitter matrix represents the final crucial bridge between the internal mechanisms of the lightsaber and the external weapon that users wield, making it one of the most technically demanding components to construct properly. The activation matrix is the control system that allows a wielder to ignite and deactivate their lightsaber with precision. Located near the power cell, the activation matrix is essentially a sophisticated switch combined with a force resonance trigger that responds to the wielder's intent and force connection. In its most basic form, the activation matrix contains a physical button or switch, usually located on the handle where the user's thumb naturally rests. That completes an electrical circuit connected to the power cell. However, the most sophisticated lightsabers incorporate force-sensitive components into their activation matrices, allowing experienced users to ignite their blades through concentration alone without touching any physical button. This force resonance activation is a mark of a master's weapon, requiring deep attunement between wielder and blade. The activation matrix also controls the blade's intensity and duration. Most lightsabers maintain constant blade intensity once ignited, but some advanced matrices allow wielders to modulate power output, dimming the blade to conserve energy or intensifying it for devastating strikes. The activation matrix must be extremely reliable because a failure during combat could leave a wielder defenseless at a critical moment. This is why Jedi and Sith alike invest significant resources into ensuring their activation matrices are flawlessly constructed and regularly maintained. The matrix also contains fail-safe mechanisms that automatically deactivate the blade if the lightsaber is dropped or struck with excessive force, preventing accidental injuries to the wielder. Some activation matrices include safety locks that prevent unauthorized users from igniting the weapon, a feature particularly common on Jedi training lightsabers. The activation matrix represents the direct point of contact between the wielder's will and the weapon's function, making it one of the most personal and customized components of any lightsaber. Operating a lightsaber generates enormous amounts of thermal energy. The blade itself burns at temperatures exceeding 10,000 degrees, and the internal mechanisms that create and contain that plasma produce additional heat that must be managed to prevent the entire weapon from melting or malfunctioning. This is where the heat sink becomes essential. The heat sink is a network of thermal conductive pathways embedded throughout the lightsaber's handle, typically made from specialized materials like cortosis or similar heat-resistant alloys that channel excess thermal energy away from critical components and safely disperse it through the weapon's exterior casing. Without an effective heat sink system, a lightsaber would become dangerously hot within minutes of sustained use, potentially burning the wielder's hand or causing internal components to fail catastrophically. The heat sink works by absorbing thermal energy from the emitter matrix, power cell, and activation circuits, then conducting that heat through conductive channels toward heat dissipation fins or ventilation ports located along the lightsaber's body. These fins or ports allow the accumulated heat to radiate away into the surrounding air or environment. The quality of a lightsaber's heat sink directly affects how long it can be used continuously before overheating. A poorly designed heat sink forces users to deactivate their blades periodically to allow the weapon to cool, a serious disadvantage in prolonged combat. A well-engineered heat sink allows sustained blade operation with minimal downtime. Master craftspeople often design heat sinks as integral parts of the lightsaber's aesthetic, with decorative fins or vents that serve the dual purpose of cooling while enhancing the weapon's visual appearance. During the Clone Wars, Jedi experimenting with lightsaber designs discovered that heat management was the primary limiting factor. No amount of power could overcome the thermal constraints of keeping a blade stable through continuous rapid strikes. The heat sink represents the practical engineering solution to the fundamental thermal challenges of wielding a weapon powered by plasma and force energy. The hand grip is far more than just a comfortable handle. It is the physical interface between wielder and weapon, and its design profoundly affects how effectively a lightsaber can be used in combat. The grip is typically constructed from leather, synthetic materials, or wrapping that provides texture and friction, preventing the weapon from slipping during intense duels or when hands become sweaty from exertion. However, the grip's construction goes deeper than surface materials. Beneath the outer wrapping lies a structural core made from strong but lightweight materials like durasteel or other specialized alloys that provide rigidity while maintaining balance. The grip's diameter, length, and contour are customized to the individual wielder's hand size and fighting style. Jedi who favored precise, technical swordplay often preferred thinner grips that allowed for delicate wrist movements, while those who emphasized power strikes preferred thicker grips that distributed force more evenly across the hand. At the base of the grip sits the pommel, a weighted counterbalance that serves multiple critical functions. The pommel's primary purpose is to provide balance to the lightsaber, offsetting the weight of the blade and internal mechanisms to create a weapon that feels natural and responsive in hand. A well-balanced lightsaber requires minimal effort to maneuver, while an unbalanced weapon exhausts the wielder quickly. The pommel also provides a striking surface. Many lightsaber forms incorporate pommel strikes as defensive or offensive techniques, using the weighted end as a close-range weapon. Additionally, the pommel often houses the Kyber crystal securing mechanism, keeping the crystal locked firmly in place during combat. Some pommels contain additional components like secondary power regulators or backup systems. Master lightsaber builders spend considerable time refining grip and pommel design, understanding that an uncomfortable or poorly balanced weapon compromises the wielder's effectiveness regardless of blade quality. The grip and pommel together represent the personal connection between user and weapon. At the junction where the blade emerges from the handle sits the blade guard, a protective ring or cross guard that serves both functional and aesthetic purposes. The blade guard protects the wielder's hand from accidentally contacting the plasma blade during combat, a risk that becomes significant during extended duels when fatigue or desperation might lead to careless positioning. The guard is typically made from heat-resistant materials capable of withstanding proximity to the blade's extreme temperatures without melting or deforming. Different lightsaber designs feature dramatically different blade guards. Traditional Jedi lightsabers often feature simple, elegant guards that minimize obstruction while providing adequate protection. Some Sith lightsabers incorporate more elaborate or aggressive-looking guards that reflect their wielders' philosophies. Crossguards, additional blade projectors that extend perpendicular to the main blade, represent an extreme design variation where secondary plasma veins provide both defensive coverage and additional striking surfaces. Though these designs are rare and technically demanding to construct, surrounding the blade guard and housing the internal emitter matrix is the emitter shroud, the visible metal casing that forms the lightsaber's distinctive profile. The emitter shroud contains ventilation ports and heat dissipation features that allow thermal energy to escape, while protecting the delicate internal components from physical damage. The shroud's design significantly influences a lightsaber's visual identity. Some shrouds are simple cylinders, while others feature ridges, fluting, or decorative elements that make each weapon visually distinctive. The emitter shroud also serves a practical purpose in blade stability. Its structural rigidity helps maintain proper alignment of internal components, ensuring consistent blade formation. Additionally, the shroud can incorporate secondary systems like cooling vents, secondary activation switches, or attachment points for accessories like blade tips or decorative elements. The blade guard and emitter shroud together represent the final visible components that define a lightsaber's appearance and complete its transition from internal mechanisms and raw plasma into the iconic weapon recognized across the galaxy. Do you have thoughts on what makes a perfect lightsaber design? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep breakdown of lightsaber engineering, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more Star Wars analysis and lore exploration. As always, may the Force be with you.